All right, everyone, welcome. So today I am joined by Jamison Newlander from The Lost Boys to discuss, obviously, The Lost Boys, but also some other films that he has done. So welcome. How you doing?
Nice. So, hello, everybody.
Yeah. Well, let's just start things off. So, how did you originally get into acting? So on IMDb it says that you were in a TV show called Valerie for an episode, but The Lost Boys was
Uh-huh.
your first major role, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I started acting. I probably started getting serious about doing it at about 13. So this would have been 1983. Excuse me. Um, and I booked a commercial when I was 14, like the next year. And then I got a couple other jobs, including the Valerie job. And that was a big deal. Those it was a co-star role on Valerie, only a few lines and stuff. But I got to work with Jason Bateman and Valerie Harper. It was really cool. But yeah, Lost Boys was a whole different category of like role size and significance in the movie, and also the size of the movie. You know.
Yeah. Well, how did you get the role in the film? Was it like were you scouted for it? Was it like a casting agent thing where like your agent got it, or did you just like sort of audition for it? Like, did you find the thing to audition for it?
Yeah, so it's like in a situation like that, it's like this happened with the people that I knew who were auditioning in LA. So growing up in LA at that time in the 80s, you had access to film and TV and stuff the way that almost nobody else did. Maybe in New York to an extent, people had similar kind of things. So, I was just auditioning a lot. My 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 mom was the one who kind of got me into it and sort of made those initial connections and stuff. And she would pick me up after school. We would go to auditions, and this was just one of those auditions. It was further along when so I knew the casting director Marion Doherty because she really liked me for this other movie. And it was like it wasn't quite right. It didn't. They wanted me to get emancipated. It was like so I didn't have to have the child labor laws and stuff. And I just wasn't ready for that. So I turned it down. But she remembered me, and so that's when she brought me in for Lost Boys. And also the other factor too is that Joel Schumacher, he was friends with my acting teacher and actually came in and spoke in my acting class. I didn't like meet him then, but I saw him speak and I could kind of reference that. So some common ground and stuff, you know.
Yeah. So, well, you mentioned that. So, how old were you when you got the role? Like, how old were you when you filmed it?
I was sort of on the cusp of 15 and 16. So I got the part, you know, just before I was turning 16. And so by the time we were filming it, I was 16.
All right. Well, I mean, continuing from that, what stood out to you really about the film and the role? Like, of course, it's a very interesting premise. It's very, very, very good film, very cool film. What stood out to you about it at the time?
You know, I think that, I wasn't really able to see beyond my own kind of little piece of it. Like, I had no idea if it was going to be a good movie or not. I just didn't think I had the ability to kind of assess that at that time. At 15, I was lucky to be able to, you get some pages for an audition and, you work those pages and, you hope to be able to read the whole script and understand the whole character, but it's hard. The screenplays are kind of hard to read. So I didn't exactly have a sense of the whole movie, but I knew that, first of all, I knew that Schumacher was that he was the real deal because he had just done San Elmo's Fire and he was talking to us, about the process and everything. And he was really excited about it. He was really excited about these characters, about the Frog Brothers. And so, that I think was a big thing. And then if you talk to other actors in the movie, it's a similar kind of thing in terms of Joel really was the one who was really just so instrumental in their characters in shape helping them shape their characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of Joel, what was he like as a director? Like, so of course he was a very big director. So what was it like working with him?
Yeah, so Joel was first of all really nice guy from the beginning.
Yeah.
And just really creative, really like a partner in creativity with you, kind of thing. There were times when he was under a lot of pressure, and pressure that I couldn't comprehend really. I was like, he's the director, it's like he had things went over, if they went over budget, if they went over time, if things weren't working, they were working on the script the whole time, they needed to come up with an ending, all that kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of pressure, and there were times where he was impatient and stuff, but mostly he was just very excited about the project and about each scene, and then he was also really seemed to be very clear on his vision, which was cool. We could kind of grasp onto that and be like, he's really excited. Excuse me. He's really excited about this vision, So he was a really nice guy, and continued to be offer me some mentorship to an extent afterwards. He wanted to see me succeed, and even he brought me in to read for Cousins, a couple movies actually, but I got pretty close on Cousins and was bummed not to get it. But of course, Keith Coogan is a friend of mine, and he was awesome. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So, of course, you play Alan Frog, but you have a brother in the movie of Edgar. So, what was it like working with Corey Feldman? How do you guys develop I guess the brotherly dynamic that the Frog brothers have in the movie?
So, part of it was just kind of luck that we had a similar kind of. I mean, and to this day, I can see it. We have all kinds of sort of different things going on, and our lives intersect at times at conventions, or different things we're working on, and we still have a similar kind of sense of humor. I think we can really appreciate each other, and so I think that happened from the very beginning, from the moment that we met each other actually outside the casting office, at the callback, and it was like it continued like that. We were just really tight. We had a great time in Santa Cruz. We went as much as they would let us bike around and stuff, and it was always super fun. And so I think it's like that chemistry, some of that was just built in, and it was why we were cast like that. I think also the other thing is that Joel was intent on us becoming brothers, and there's some of the direction I remember him giving us was like, you can see it on screen, and he's like, so he says something, and it's like, okay, and then you check in with your brother, and it was like, you can see that on screen where we look at each other, and it's like, it's just powerful. It shows that we're on the same team, that we have this partnership. So those kinds of things really were able to build our bond, or our characters together.
Yeah. Well, going into some more of the production side, were there any scenes that were particularly fun or challenging to film in the movie? When you guys are staking Marco in the chest, I guess.
Yeah. So, those scenes were a little harder to film. They were because there's a lot of choreography to get right, and you have to get the line in at the right spot, because then this happens, and and when you're under a lot of pressure, and I think we were in the cave for the first time for that scene, and so it was all kind of new, and trying to figure it out. And so I remember that scene being a lot of pressure. And the bathroom scene, where all the slime explodes out of everything, and
Yeah.
that was probably my least favorite experience there of that shoot, because we just had to lie in that slime for hours while they were adjusting lights. They'd be like, take it, do a few takes, and then adjust this and that, and they're like, keep the actors in, so they didn't have to just have us tracking slime everywhere, and so that was really awful. But short of that, everything else was pretty fun. There was a lot of pressure, and I think my favorite stuff really was the comic book store scenes. It was just so it was just choreographed really well, I thought, and it was like whatever there was on the page, you know, he, Schumacher's asking us to be just so serious, so action hero-y, so just like tough. And but we still don't know that it's going to come across that way, that Haim's going to, be the way he is. And, and I think it just all worked really well together. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, going back to the slime thing, I feel like that's something where not a lot of people really think about that when it comes to like filmmaking. A scene might be 2 minutes long, but it could take hours upon hours to film one whole scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, that scene is not even 2 minutes, I don't think. I mean, if you kind of add it all up, it's, it's like, and there's all these logistics, and then, with the slime too, they the first time they exploded it, it was the wrong color. They were like, oh, it's been in the tanks for too long. It turned, a little bit, it was more like kind of blue and white. It was, gross in that way. And then they were like, okay. And then, they would all exploded on us. So we had to go get showered and, put on our second version of the costume, that they have for us. And then boom, they did it again, but they put too much red food coloring in it. Or whatever coloring in it that they put, and then it looked like blood. It was like blood splattered all over the bathroom. And I remember Schumacher specifically was like, no, he's like, I can't, I promised the studio that I no gore, which I think is kind of interesting, a little insight there in that moment. I was like, interesting. So that's part of, I think, why it's slime and not blood. And they have it a little bit, not quite, it's not quite gory. I mean, there ended up being some gore in the movie, but maybe they were just trying to limit it,
Yeah, I mean, of course you can probably get away with that, considering they're vampires, not full-on humans, so maybe they wouldn't have proper blood inside their bodies.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That was the idea too. Is like, what does come out? Is it blood? Is it changed? And it's like, yeah, it's changed. Somehow it's this creature of the night stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, building upon that, what's your favorite scene from the movie?
You mean like as a viewer or as a participant?
As a viewer, as a participant, really just in general, what would you say is your favorite part?
Okay, so objectively speaking, not factoring in stuff that I'm in, which I'm biased toward, but yeah. I think that the scene where he's like, I can't beat your bike, and he's like, you don't have to beat me, Michael, you just have to keep up. And it's like, that is this pivotal moment. And I could be wrong, but I wonder if that's the midpoint of the movie. I always kind of like note where it is, but it's like, that's the moment where it's like, okay, maybe this guy's gonna have some friends. That's how it would normally play out in life, is you'd be like, make a connection, and maybe everybody's being tough and everything, and then like, you're cool, and then you have a group of friends, and so it's like, yeah, it really could have been that. And so I just think it was crafted so beautifully to be that, like, a guy trying to get in with a group of people, and not being cartoony about it. It was real. I mean, even though it was dramatic, it was real. You know what I mean? So I love that scene.
Yeah.
And I also have to make a play for the bridge scene. Just so freaking, like, to actually, first of all, dramatize the old expression, about if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you also jump off a bridge? Like, oh, well, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? It's like, well, guess what? He did. He didn't exactly jump off. He more just kind of climbed down, but still. And so I thought that was really, really cool. And it's such an iconic scene. And it's like, what the heck did happen? Did he die? Did he, I guess he did. Did he become a vampire? Oh, that's right. He was already a vampire from the vampire blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's like we don't even see it yet. It's probably because Jason Patrick was like, no teeth, no, no vampire teeth are flying around, you know. So yeah, so those things. What about you? What are your favorite scenes?
So for me, it is also the bridge scene. I love not just the bit where they're going, where they're like hopping down, the bit where they all fall, and then the bit where he falls as well. The transition from him falling to him like going into his bed is so
Yeah,
perfect.
you're right. It's so great. It's so great. And you don't know it's going to be great. I mean, that was the brilliance of Schumacher. I mean, it's also luck, that you put something together and you're like, you know what, this works, but yeah, that's where I mean, like, what the heck happened? We don't even see what happened. He's just,
Yeah.
but we don't want to yet. I mean, or something. It didn't bother me, or it bothered me just enough to make it cool, you know. I came into the casting process later and they already had, people, they already had awesome actors, but I made a nice sort of connection with Chuck Russell, who directed it, and he was like, oh, there's this part, the older brother of the guys and Usher, and so it was great. I loved being in it. I wish I got a kill out of it. I wish I think that was what they were intending initially, but no luck on that. So I still have yet to be killed in a horror movie. So all you budding filmmakers out there, keep that in mind, So,
Message
but it
him.
was a great
Available.
experience.
He wants.
I didn't.
He wants to be killed.
Yeah, I wanted to be killed in a movie. But I didn't get to hang out with like Kevin Dillon and Shawnee Smith. They just, I didn't have any scenes with them really, and it was like I wasn't even necessarily on set. I remember Shawnee in the distance, just like, wow, who's that cute? Who's that cutie? Oh, that's Shawnee Smith. So yeah, but it was a great experience, and I love the Blob. I think it's a really cool movie.
Yeah, it's really good, and I mean, I love that one. I also love the original Blob as well. Like they're both great.
Yeah.
So you filmed a scene for the second Lost Boys, but it was cut, right? But
Yeah.
then you came back for the third one.
Yeah, so it's like the scene that we did for the second one, for the tribe, it was like, I think the whole shoot, Feldman was kind of trying to convince them that they needed to include more people, and like that they could include us, and and so they kind of hatched this idea of this ending where, was Haim actually in it, or did he go to special features as well?
I can't remember.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, so it was like going to be this cool thing, and I think it seemed better on paper, that it's like, oh yeah, what's going on? Oh, your brother's the head vampire, and I'm glad that they put it in special features, and they kind of took it out of canon, because I just don't think it was the right direction for my character, for Alan, and I didn't really have much of a say there. We're like, here we go, and you're going to be in this long wig, and you're going to be driving this muscle car, and and it's like, cool, whatever you want to do, it's your movie, but like it was great that they took it out of that. So then in the thirst, then we could be more like the Frog Brothers, and so we still had the twist in there that I won't give away, that some people will know who've seen it, but we get to be the Frog Brothers again, the way you kind of remember us to an extent, which was a lot of fun. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, so I've heard that around the time, like a bit after the original came out, that Kiefer Sutherland wanted to do another one. Did anyone like try and make one around that time, like a sequel to it around that time, or did it just like not work out, and then they made, of course, the two that do exist now?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I had a meeting with Joel after the first one came out, and he was like we're approved for a sequel. You're gonna be in it. You and Corey are gonna be in it. Laddie's gonna be in it, and I forget who else he said, if Jason was gonna come back or something, like maybe Jason and Jamie or something like that. And it just didn't really get off the ground. It stalled somewhere. I think part of it has to do with Richard Donner. Richard Donner owned some of it. Warner Brothers owned some of it. Schumacher owned some of it, and I think they couldn't agree really. That's just what I've heard, so I don't want to like assume that I know that. But it all kind of fizzled, and then it wasn't until the early 2000s that um, that really when when Corey Feldman was trying to bring his career to his sort of like adult career to the next level, sort of after Surreal Life and stuff, that he was bringing in Corey Haim so that they could be the two Coreys again, and they had the show, the two Coreys show, and the idea was to get Lost Boys going again, and maybe get all of those, get sequels for a bunch of those, kind of things. So it just took on a different life. That was like more of a vehicle for Corey, for Corey Feldman, or for the Coreys really. So that's why I think it took that turn.
Yeah. So, I mean, since those movies, you have been in loads of different projects, but one that definitely stands out to me is Bone Tomahawk. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was just emailing with the director, with Craig Zoller, this morning, because he's got a new movie that he just got greenlit, and he's putting it together. But he, Craig Zoller was this guy in New York that I got connected with him because I did a little movie, just something that really went anywhere. It was called Tornado States. Thought it was a cool movie, and I did some kind of funny acting in it, and Craig really liked what I did, and he was brilliant. He's a cinematographer. He was a cinematographer then. That was part of what he did. But he was just this film guy. I mean, he really loved film, and he really seemed to know what he was doing, and he, saved our production, a lot of money because, he could do little tricks, and he ended up doing that with Bone Tomahawk. So, after all of that, we kind of did different things. He stayed in New York. I went to LA, and he started selling all these scripts because he's, understands movies, brilliant writer, creative guy. And so he started selling all these scripts. And, as sometimes happens in Hollywood, people can sell a bunch of scripts, but they're not making any movies. And for someone like Craig, who that's what he wanted to do, was make movies. He, it's great to be selling scripts, and he was making a nice living, I think, but he was like, let's do one, And so that's what Bone Tomahawk was. It was like, the people he was working with, he was like, okay, let's just make this one. And they did it for pretty cheap. It was the same kind of thing where he knew what to do. He knew how to shoot things. He got, Kurt Russell and, Patrick Wilson and Matthew Fox and all the guys that are in it on the merits of the script, just being really cool script. And I was honored that he called me up to have a role in it. I think he's awesome. And I'm hoping to work with Craig again, actually, soon. I mean, when I say soon, I mean soon. No, I mean,
Yeah.
not this movie, but I think another movie hopefully soon.
That's great. So, a final question for you. What advice would you give to young actors or people trying to make it or try and find a way into the film industry today?
Okay, so this kind of changes different times when I think about it, and because people ask me this from time to time, and it's like I'm not exactly able to say like, hey, I've mastered that, and so any advice I give is like I'm working on that as well, and those things. So I say it with humility, that. So the first thing I would say is what I think I've discovered is that, I mean, what I've seen over the years is that this is really a people business, and it's about finding people you like to work with and that you like to hang out with, and like to create with, and you can be creative with and have fun with, and then make movies and do projects and things like that. That's kind of, I think, what makes careers really is making those kinds of connections, but genuinely finding connection with people. And so, people are like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah, but you can meet people and you can know more people. And, so it's not like you have to like be born into who you know. That kind of networking, and, and even like to the extent I'll say like, partying together. I mean, not like you have to be, a drinker or whatever, but it's like, going out to bars after shows, or, going to, you know, kind of like really having some fun with people. It builds bonds. And I think it's a big piece of, I think, success. That's probably my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about,
Totally.
the movies that you've been in and just doing this. It's very nice of you.
You bet. A lot of fun. I love talking about Lost Boys, and yeah, it was great. I enjoyed your questions.